I'm Sarah Brown, and this is The Mothers, real conversations with leaders, creators, and thinkers about who we are, what we want, and how we build meaningful lives alongside motherhood. Hi, everyone. Like so many listening, especially those in the Northeast, I'm emerging from, I don't even know how many days with the kids at home. We had one sick with the flu for a week before February break. Then the other two had versions of it throughout the break, quote unquote break. Then we had a blizzard and school was closed for 2 days. Does everyone else who was raising kids through COVID have a very limited tolerance for being stuck at home with kids? I feel like I have maybe 36 hours in me before I start to have an existential spiral. Our 4-year-old blames the groundhog for seeing its shadow, and maybe that's just what I need to do. Find a common enemy. We're also muddling through life after the Olympics, the ridiculousness of what has gone down between Trump, our gold medal winning women's and men's hockey teams, a horrific State of the Union, and frankly, shame on everyone in mainstream media that is critiquing that event as if it was any other normal State of the Union. This normalizing is making me insane. But what has been helping, and I'm a late adopter here, I know, The Pit, this show. Like most things, I hated it at first, and now I'm addicted. Somehow it gives me all the feels of This Is Us and maybe even a little Friday Night Lights, but with the intensity of like a military operation and blood and guts and near-death experiences. The New York Times called it the most patriotic show on television. And I don't know about patriotic, but it does seem to reflect the brutal reality of America. All the suffering and overcoming in one place, where nothing is fair, nothing is guaranteed, and the very system in which it is operating is corrupt. And yet, heroes emerge. Look for the helpers, everyone says, quoting Mr. Rogers. Well, I'm looking. And our guest this week is one of them. Dr. Pria Anand is a neurologist at Boston Medical Center and an assistant professor of neurology at Boston University School of Medicine, mother of 2, and how could there be an and, is the author of The Mind Electric, which was just named a finalist for the PEN America E.O. Wilson Literary Science Writing Award, a big deal, and is a best book of 2025, according to Publishers Weekly, Barnes & Noble, among many other organizations. But this makes sense because before she ever thought about medicine, Pria wanted to be a journalist. She's a storyteller, a story lover at heart. She's also someone who seems to approach hard in the same way she approaches the human brain, with a sense of true wonder. But one that doesn't disregard the reality of hard. She's incredibly empathetic, which is a punishing strength in the medical field. She's also just very smart. The kind of smart that's smart enough to still be a real person. If you're a doctor or thinking about being a doctor, she is the mentor you need to hear from. Her wisdom will buoy you through the realities you deal with that I personally can't possibly understand, and they'll propel you into the field. She speaks candidly about blending motherhood and medicine, mourning the loss of her identity as a neurologist above all when she became pregnant with her first child, and then the realization that she actually became a better doctor when she became a mother. We talk about how she figured out what she wanted to do, the importance of help, how the hell she wrote a book on a maternity leave, the changes needed within medicine to better support mothers, the gendered biases she encountered, and anyone that survived residency and or recent newborns will get this. The deep importance of deep sleep. This interview was a warm, confident, motivational hug from a wise soul. And isn't that what we need? Someone who has experienced the hard, can validate your hard, sit next to you in it, and tell you with quiet conviction, you're going to be okay. So please enjoy my conversation with Dr. Pria Anand, the mother we all need. So you saw the briefing doc, like the way this goes, it's broadly your story, like your life and what we can harvest from that in terms of wisdom and what it's, themes will be, identity, a little bit of career plan. Like, how did you figure out what you wanted to do? And how did you think about doing that alongside kids? And what's the experience been like in practice versus in theory. And yeah, we like to keep it, I don't know, as candid as you can be. And I read your book is beautiful, and it hits on so many levels. I feel like I need to read it more than once because you so nicely weave in your own experience and then deep medical insights and then a lot of gendered insight. Like there's just so much happening all at once that the visual that they have here, it's very like secret guard, like lush secret guard, like you could dig into and find other layers down there. I personally know parts of your story, but we'll kick off.
Yes.
And would love to sort of hear you talk that through, even though I'm a somewhat informed listener.
Yes. Right. You're an informed host.
Yes, exactly. Do you have any questions though, before we get going?
No, I mean, does the quality of everything seem okay?
Yes.
Okay.
You look excellent in your background. I mean, you make yourself look smart anyway, but your background makes you look very smart. So
smart. Okay, good.
We're doing all the right things.
It's cloud lock right here.
I do love seeing people. I mean, I haven't figured mine out entirely yet, but it is funny, the backgrounds on podcast studios where it's like the rest of their room is a total shit show.
Like a complete disaster.
But we do what we can. You can see, it's like motherhood. It's a trick.
Right. Exactly. Right. What you can see from the outside or from this like little window. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Amazing. Well, let's kick it off. Let's have some fun. Get the find my energy on a Monday. But yeah, so thank you so much for joining us, finding time to do this. And I loved, as we were talking about, loved the various forms of your story that show up in your book. And we'll pick out some of those themes too. But we love so much of this podcast is about allowing the people on the other end to hear the fuller story of these women you can see certain sides of them in different places. But if I know anything about surviving as a mother or living fully as a mother, is that it's a very integrated experience, and somehow the energy required to keep different parts of my life looking fine without acknowledging the rest of them is just it takes a lot of energy. So we like to open up with just giving our guests a chance to share their story from an integrated lens. And whatever sort of contributes to you as you are today, and these things change. But Pria of today, beautiful neurologist, beautiful writer, mother of two, surviving cold New England winters. Would love to hear kind of your origin story as you think of it today.
Yeah. So first of all, thank you so much for having me. You have such amazing conversations on this podcast, and I'm so honored to be a part of it. And I know if listeners are aware that we met through your mother.
Yes,
feels like
the ultimate
connector.
Correct.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes,
the ultimate connector.
Yes.
So I'm very, very honored to be here, and I'm already a huge fan. New England winters are so my kids are, my little one is 2, just turned 2, and my big one is 3.5, and they are they're amazing, but they're also fully monster.
Yes,
it's winter and they're not spending as much time outside. We're really just.
I wish they could just get on a treadmill. Someone needs to figure out toddler-friendly treadmills because they just need to get worn out. Yes.
I know it is wild. Yes, I feel like I've had many seasons in my life so far, and have many kind of seasons happening right now. So I actually I'm a neurologist now, and I am a writer and had my first book come out this year. But I'm not one of those people who sort of started out life with a toy stethoscope and knew I wanted to be a doctor. Yeah. There are not any doctors in my family, although there are lots of people who need medical advice.
Yeah.
But I didn't start out life sort of wanting to be a doctor. I actually wanted to be a journalist for a very long time. And I just really loved this idea that you could do what you're doing, which is speak to someone and hear their story and find something universal in that and kind of alchemize that into something that other people could see themselves in and relate to. And I especially loved doing that with beliefs or life experiences that I knew nothing about or that were not a part of my own life. And so that was kind of what I wanted to do for the longest time. And then when I was in college, I actually had this job where I worked as a medical case manager in the prison system in Connecticut, where I was in college. And I took the job because I was really interested in kind of the types of stories and journalistic stories that might come out of that. And then was so sort of, it had this really lightning moment where I sort of had this feeling that the stories that felt the most universal are the ones about our bodies and illness. And I was kind of witnessing a lot of different kinds of illness and relating to all these people who had very, very different lives than I did, because we were all kind of living in bodies and all kind of share the same frailties. And so that was like a really lovely experience for me. I also, the kind of journalist that I wanted to do, which is like a print long form journalism, was it was a really tough time to be thinking about that.
Oh my God. I often say, I'm like, I wish I'd been bored. And it's also annoying because both my parents in their different ways are writers. My dad more classically is a journalist, freelancer, could support a family in Newton doing this. And I'm always like,
those were
first
the
of all,
days.
that was the obvious model that I had. Second of all, I was born 3 decades too late.
Too late. I know. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So I empathize.
Yes. It's a tough time to have that dream. Although I feel like a lot of those stories are shifting, that like people are telling stories in their own ways. I feel like audio is like the new way that some of these stories are being told. But so that's sort of like the backstory. And I that was the first like moment where I thought about going to medical school and started to realize that there was like this other way that I could still sort of hear and celebrate stories and still like be like have these really intimate moments and connections with people who are really radically different from me in many ways. And so that's sort of the long version of my backstory of how I became a doctor.
That's wild. This is great because my father-in-law is the only other, he's a pediatrician and would much prefer to, has a natural disposition towards being a writer, a poet. And he's the only other, I'm sure there are others as we will continue to uncover, but I feel like I otherwise often hear doctors being very, not in a dismissive way, like very practical people. I had a plan, I had an intention, I had a reason. And also in some ways, I always thought that might be required because it's such an investment and a sacrifice to become a doctor. I couldn't even read some of your passages about the sleepless nights of residency. It's like I felt them in my bones. Not that I was close to that, but my version of like dealing with newborn life, because it's really, really hard. So do you remember, was it painful to I don't know, give up a dream is too dramatic, but going from journalist to medicine is definitely a shift. And I very much appreciate the way you're telling the story to us and to yourself now. But like, how did you get to a place of commitment? Because I also think people like you who are bright and capable in so many areas, in some ways it's all, the grass is always greener, but someone who could do anything, how do you decide to commit to something?
That's such an interesting question that I feel like doesn't get asked enough, but I feel like there's so many people who are sort of like making swords later in their life or trying to kind of like figure out what their path is. It's interesting. I really struggle with making decisions. And, like it takes me a really long time to like moving is like my greatest nightmare. Like I'm the kind of person, like I think people that had different experiences of change. I'm sure we'll talk about the way that having children is a change, but I'm like one of those people who like really mourns what you're losing.
Yes, I hate change.
Time that you make a change. Exactly. I think it took me sort of a little while to really sort of walk that path. And then like the minute that I did, I feel like I had this like, to some extent as a medical student, but really when I was a resident. So after I finished medical school, sort of your first job as a doctor and you're working like 80-hour weeks, my residency, I would work, they don't do this very much anymore, but I would work every 4th day. I would work like a 30-hour shift. And it was like, I didn't write at all when I was a resident. It was not because I was tired, but it was really that I felt like that part of me was full, like my cup was full. And this way I don't think I fully anticipated. Like I felt like I was really steeped in all of these stories. The exercise of like morning rounds where you go around the hospital and meet all the patients that you're taking care of. If you're the person who was on overnight, you're telling their story to all the other doctors who are coming in. And then you're going to the room and trying to understand like what you might have missed about their story and trying to see how it can piece together into like a narrative arc that makes sense. And I really felt like, I think just, it's one of those things that I think you really have to like throw yourself into, because if you spend too long, if you take, if you question too frequently what you're doing and why, I think you can really like, you can be like, really
I don't know what you're talking about, Pria.
And so I think you really have to like just fling yourself into it. It's interesting that you bring up that sort of part of the book, because I actually wrote the first chapter of the book that I wrote was a chapter on sleep. And I wrote it like a couple weeks after I had my first child. And it was
Mm.
because I wasn't sleeping. I had just had the experience of pregnancy. I didn't sleep a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, pregnancy totally transformed my sleep. I had never had dreams before, and I was having these like vivid dreams and restless legs. And then I had a baby who would only sleep like on top of me. So we were sleeping in shifts, and my shift was always like a little shorter because he was like nursing. So I
Yeah.
was sleeping like a maximum of an hour and a half at a time. And it was so, it felt so similar to that experience of residency. Like it all just like viscerally kind of like hit me in the gut. I was like, this is the same kind of
Yes.
like liminal space between being awake and being asleep and being really joyful and being really exhausted. And,
Yes.
and
Yes.
so that's why I actually wrote that. So it's interesting that I
Oh, it
totally,
resonates. But
yes.
also, I want everyone, well, everyone should read the book, but in case they missed this sentence or paragraph, the concept, you go into the concept of residency and how it was inspired by this basically crack addict doctor who was like, I don't need to sleep because he was on cocaine the entire time. And then thought there was some sort of pride in being able to do all of this all the time. And it just, that felt so symbolic of so many things that we as women and mothers, whatever, inherit of this guy that did it this way in a way that actually, as it turns out, was incredibly dysfunctional and unhealthy. And now we all have to hold ourselves to these standards. And you mentioned that it's getting a little bit better, but do you see the residency approach and just how brutal it is? Is it continuing to get better in any way? Or is it just, we've like accepted that this is the necessary hardship somehow to become worthy of being doctors?
It's so interesting that story, like it blew my mind. Like it happened at the hospital where I trained. So at the Johns Hopkins Hospital where residencies were invented, and they were called residencies because physically lived at the hospital. And there were these two men who, one was an internist, William Osler, who sort of, his idea was that you should really be like this monk, like you should sacrifice everything. His residents were not allowed to get married for their entire 7-year duration of their training. They lived at the hospital and they cared for patients. And this other guy, William Halstead, who was a surgeon and did a lot of amazing things for our understanding of surgical care of cancer. But he, exactly as you said, he famously held jobs at like multiple different hospitals at the same time. And you would look at his schedule and be like, when did this guy sleep? And we didn't learn until years after he died that he did not sleep. He was using cocaine the entire time. He was like, fully an addict, and that was why he didn't need to sleep. But he had this idea that like there was something really, and you're totally right. I feel like we have this thing about motherhood as well. Like there's something like really virtuous about denying your own physical needs or denying that you are also in a body and have needs and limitations. And like somehow that was like the crucible that all of these doctors should walk through. And it's interesting. I feel like workplaces everywhere are changing now in this way that people value themselves and their time and their well-being in a way that I think like did not used to be the case. And I think to some extent, like, because there's two pieces of it. One is the actual schedule, and that has changed, but it can only change so much because you just need people physically in a hospital 24 hours.
You mentioned some of the practical reasons. Like, unfortunately, it's just more cost effective.
It's a really cost effective. I think about this now where I'm like, oh my God, it's so much harder. To staff all the hours when people have restrictions and how long they can work. There's like the labor side of things, but then there's also this like metaphysical side of things, which is like what does it mean to like earn this title, and what do we think are the qualities that make someone a worthy doctor or a worthy mother, or all of the,
Yes. Oh, wait, before we jump too far, I wanted to get the details on when and how the heck in the midst of all of this you had children. And even just as you were approaching the idea, well, you were bought into being a doctor, was on your mind. We've interviewed a few doctors, and I have doctors in my life who they will say, lawyers say similar things, where there's just kind of, it's the elephant in the room for most of the women there is like, how do I do this when my prime childbearing years are at the same time as residency often? How do I coordinate all these things? But I also don't want to ask that question or acknowledge that concern because it maybe makes me think I'm not like properly committed to this thing. I'm curious like if that came up for you, and then how did you sort of sequence alongside becoming a neurologist?
Yeah, that's such a great question. And I think it goes back to this like origin story, which is like so many of these training models were originated by men, right? Who were like, oh yes, I'm going to deny all my, personal goals and needs for 7 years while I'm a resident. And then after that, marry someone who's 7 years younger
Yeah.
than them and have kids on the same timeline.
Mhm.
So I think it's really interesting because I think we have this idea that that's somehow like the natural order to like sacrifice those childbearing years to these really labor intensive models. And it's not. It's like something we've as a society constructed, and
Mhm.
it's so hard to change. I feel like I fully drank this Kool-Aid around residency in the sense that I was a doctor for a while before I had kids. So
Mhm.
I finished my residency, I finished my fellowship. I was an attending physician, so I was supervising residents and other trainees, and had like I think I just the way that I approached residency, I approached those early years of doctoring. So I was someone who like you know, I would like stay at the hospital late. I would come home exhausted and totally wrung out and just like leave it all
Mhm.
on the floor at work,
Mhm.
and felt like I felt like there was like nothing that was even when I had a partner, I think like I was like, this is who I am,
Yeah.
and like we're both grown-ups, and we both have our lives, and I didn't feel like I was giving anything up to do that, and I was terrified of having kids because I felt like the reason that I could like be joyful in this work is because I didn't feel like I was making any trade-offs or sacrifices. And
Yes.
it's like the minute I have kids, suddenly there's this thing that has felt really selfless suddenly takes on this new, like suddenly someone else is going to be affected or hurt by,
Yeah.
its choice in this way of living. So
Yeah.
I feel really grateful that I had the chance to be a doctor before I became a mom. Like I think that was really important for me to understand like practice and how I wanted to be. And I I mean, I really felt this so deeply. So I felt like I was like on paper, I was right. So I had my first son when I was 33, I think, and
Mhm.
my second one was maybe it was 34 and 36, but
Yeah.
in my like mid 30s,
Mhm.
and was well out of training at that point, and I planned to have kids. I like got off my
Yeah.
birth control, and I
Yeah.
was like,
Yeah.
this is the moment, like I am ready to do this. And still, like as soon as I was actually pregnant, I was like felt like, to go back to this idea of like
Mhm.
change feeling like an ending, like I really grieved my whole pregnancy. I felt like I was grieving something that I was losing, which
Yeah.
was this way of being a doctor where I could really like give like my entire identity was this work and my patients. And so I really like I feel like my whole pregnancy I really felt like I was grieving. And I actually felt the same way the second time I had it, like with
Yeah.
my second child. I had the same experience because I was like, oh my gosh, now there's like I feel like I finally figured out this balance between like giving myself to the hospital and giving myself to my child. And now
Mhm.
there's going to be this other thing that's going to make it so hard for me to, to pay attention to my kid. And it's such an interesting, I wonder if the other doctors and lawyers that you've spoken to have had this
Mhm.
experience. But I so I went back to work, and it was hard. It felt like I was like leaving. It felt like I was like going back to work without my like inner organs or something. Like it just
Yeah.
so hard, especially like the long days. And then
How
it
much
kind of
time did you actually have off, out of curiosity?
so I took a lot of time off. So I
Oh,
had
good.
I had like 8 weeks of paid leave.
Okay.
And then the Massachusetts like PFML had
Mhm.
just rolled out. So I was able to take like a partially paid leave for another like couple of months. And so I think
Mhm.
and then I used like all of my vacation days. So I think beginning to end, I was off work for like 5 months or something,
Great. I love
which was
that we are like, we took so much
I
time
know,
off.
like the Canadians listening to
I
this call are like, that is pathetic. Yeah.
yes, I know. I know. But it is sad. I mean, I do just, I think part of these stories is like raising awareness that by American standards and medicine standards, kind
Yes.
of is a
Yeah.
long time, but it's not
Yeah.
enough. A lot of people wind up going back bleary eyed 3 weeks later,
Yes.
if not
Oh
less
my
than
God.
that.
1,000%.
Yes. And to feel in either state, you feel not ready in some ways. And there's some missing. It's such a leap to go back, even when you've had some reasonable amount of time. Totally
It
get it.
is.
Yeah.
And I mean, at that point, it's just like so physical. Like it's just a physical sense of absence when you're like away
Mm-hmm.
from your kid. Like, I feel like I just remember like I would have these dreams that like my son was, I would dream that I knew that my son was hungry and he was on like a train that was speeding away from me. Like I
Oh,
dreamed that
yeah.
every single night, which is like, it's so physical. Like
Mm-hmm.
this being has been with you for 10 months and then has been, just, it's interesting. I think parents of older kids have told me that it gets hard in different ways once your kids are more like verbal and emotionally aware. I think at that age, it's just this physical sense of like loss and absence.
Yes, yes. And that you can physically kind of control their life in some way.
Yes.
Whereas they get older and you can't really pick them up and move them from one room to the next or move them from danger into safety. Yeah. I pulled out this passage actually on identity. You said very much what you said. As a resident, I'd poured my entire self into work, returning from home after long shifts, wrung out, resting only enough to return the next day. I was a neurologist and nothing else. It was my whole identity, and it was more than enough. When I became pregnant, I could not fathom any other way of doctoring. To do less, I thought, would be to lose who I was. I get it. Well, two questions to it. One was, given this passage and everything you had just said, I was curious about whether having kids was always on your list of things that you really wanted to do. And then second was kind of, where did this identity evolve to? Who's Pria now after we did have the kids? So we could start with the first if you want. Was kids always on your list?
I think it was. I don't know if I would have said it explicitly, but I like, not only have I always like really loved and been drawn to children, but I also like, I think especially in medical school and in residency. So I take care of adults primarily. Sometimes in training, I spend some time taking care of children. And I think I like, to become a doctor, you become sort of like, you witness a lot of suffering, and it kind of, the emotional sort of like stakes of that, I think, become less and less like it doesn't feel like you're falling off a cliff every time that you see someone die, which is a crazy thing to say. But I never had that experience with children. So I cried. I did it like a 2-month pediatrics rotation when I was a medical student. I cried every single day of that rotation. When I was a resident and I spent some time on the pediatric neurology service, I was like, it was the worst and the hardest, but also just I felt like I was so moved by children and just this, like, I don't know. I just, there's something that's like both like really vulnerable and really resilient about children who are experiencing illness in hospitals. And so like, I think I just like, that was the thing that like I felt the most and moved me the most. And I was like, I feel like I'm not going to be a full human unless I have this in my life, you know?
The opening of your book, actually, and it's funny, you mentioned wanting to be a journalist. The opening of your book I was surprised that you said journalist, because I was like, oh, I think she wants fantasy. She would love to write fairy tales or children's books. But it seems, and even, first of all, the whole book is so nurturing, and there's such in the best way. There's so much mothering in the way that you write and the story, how you try to tell the stories and the words that you choose. And then also in the opening, I feel like your childhood seemed so front of mind, and this beautiful experience, the exchanges with your sister of telling stories and how meaningful that was to you, feels like it's happening today when I was reading it. And it's interesting to hear you say that sort of the tenderness of children is an interest of yours and something that really feels like a part of you. And so it makes sense that for you to say that, I don't know if I would fully be myself. Not that you would have, I don't think that you would have been able to say it then, but in retrospect, it wasn't my full self until then. That's interesting. Yeah.
I mean, tender is like exactly the right word. Like I often say that I think if I wanted to like write a book that would change people's lives, it'd have to be a children's book or a book. Young people, because I feel like it's just like, it just is wild to the way that we change and grow and evolve and like experience wonder, I think, in a way that it's like really, I think it's like we get to like as adults like vicariously like witness that.
Yes. Oh yeah. Yeah. So how did identity shift? And I think of it as like an ongoing thing, but now that you are not only a neurologist, like how do you think of yourself, and how does being a mother show up in your identity?
So I'll start by saying that I have a lot more experience being a neurologist than I do being a mother. Still, like my kids are still really small, but I think it's so wild. Like I really treated having kids as like a sort of an ending. Like I was like making bucket lists with my husband. I was like, these are the things I have to do before I like have a kid. And it's so, I like think about that now. I think about that version of myself who was like so afraid now. And I feel like I feel like I was like seeing my work in like black and white, and now I see it in color or something. Like it didn't even occur to me that like many of my patients have had this experience of pregnancy and having children. It didn't occur to me that like the reason that their illnesses feel so profound is that they have children or families that they are contemplating leaving behind. Like, I think I didn't really understand the stakes of death and illness until I had kids.
Yeah.
And I just feel like I can practice in this. And I don't think that has to be having children for everyone. It absolutely was for me. But for some people, that's like caring for a loved one, or like there's so many different ways that moments that you don't expect, or things that you're afraid of, or things that feel like they're going to cause you to lose your identity, really just evolve them. And for me, I feel like motherhood was the most like profound shift that I could have experienced. So I think it has like completely transformed how I view my work in a way that I feel like incredibly grateful for. And I think it's the only I thought I would never write a book if I didn't write a book before I had kids. But now I'm like, what would I have written about? Like not that I like didn't have stuff to write about, but just I feel like I couldn't see things fully. Like I couldn't fully wrestle with like what is, I sometimes think about the fact that I don't know that I was like afraid of illness or death until I had kids.
Yeah.
Like I like that has totally changed my relationship to my own body and to my own sort of the way that I move through the world. So I don't think I would have had anything. I think it gave me something to write about. It gave me something to think about, and it really like allowed me to relate to my work in a new way.
Yeah. Although, how the hell did you write a book while having these kids and, doing the doctor thing? I also love, by the way, your mom. Well, I want to talk about your mom too, but I was like trying to find, I was, looking around the internet, and your mom had made very wonderful posts in support of your book on LinkedIn, and I'm sure other places too. And she too had this question of like, if you're wondering how she did it, I too wonder how she did it with all of these things going on. So talk to me. A lot of people, I'm curious if you might, whenever I ask this question, it's almost always of people who have a full-time job, they have children, and they somehow have produced a book also. And they're like, I truly don't know how I did it. But I'm curious, if that's your answer, that's fine. But I feel like I would love to really understand how one practically does this.
So I wrote I wrote the first, I was in 5 chapters while I was on maternity leave. So during that long maternity leave, I wrote a couple chapters of the book. And then the book sold 2 weeks before I had my second kid. And I wrote the rest of it while I was on maternity leave the second time.
Yes.
And I feel like people are like, that seems crazy. And it's so, having newborns it's physically really hard, exactly as we were saying. And I think there were a couple of things it did for me. So one is it gave me this like sense of urgency. Like I feel like I would like nurse my baby, and then I'd be like, okay, like I have this like time, like there's a timer going in my head. And I feel like it somehow like it gave me this like sense of forward momentum. It also, like, my second baby was born at the end of November in Boston. It was like freezing outside. I like wasn't going anywhere. And I think when you have a newborn, you feel like you're missing out on the world. Or I did.
Yeah.
And when you write a book, you feel like you're missing out on the world. So I was like, okay, if I'm gonna like be in my house, and I'm gonna like I'm not gonna be seeing friends, and I'm not gonna be going on these vacations, and I'm gonna like I'm not gonna be able to go to my big family Thanksgiving because I'm physically in labor. I was like, I'm gonna find this thing that I can do in the comfort of my home between holding my baby. So it was actually the right time. And it was also like really, I think, important. I don't think I could have written the book except that just to talk about why that leave was so important to me. I think that's like a moment of shifting identity, but it also was the first moment in a very, very long time that I had been away from the hospital for any period of time. And I feel like I needed that to like consolidate all of the things that I was feeling about it. I don't think I would have been able to write it if I didn't have a pause like built into my life.
The perspective. I can't tell you, probably at least half of the people we interview talk about how it was on their maternity leave, however long or short it was, that the idea came to them, or they even had the time to start the thing, whether it's write the business plan or write the book. I think the importance of time and space and perspective. And I feel badly that for women and mothers, it comes, on some level, I'm like, wouldn't it be nice if we could just sit there and enjoy like the maternity, of being with our kids? But it's so body. Interesting that we feel like now's the time we could still be productive. But did it feel in some ways like therapeutic or cathartic? Or did you feel, you mentioned urgency. Was it the urgency of I have something I need to express? Or was it kind of like, I'm very I don't know, suspicious of this idea of ambition, and is it is it good? Are we being manipulated? Is it self-generated, or are we trying to aspire, like satisfy some external thing? But what is it about us? And for you, what is it for you that made you think, what drove you to do it then?
Yes. Well, I like even just even it like gives me like the idea of saying like that we should be doing anything while we're home with a child who's under 6 months old, other than like trying to stop bleeding. And, like that's like, there is some like society has really
I know.
some shit that's been implanted in our brains.
Yes.
I know. Yeah. So I think like for me, I think that the urgency, I think it was twofold. So one was like, it was like the first time that I felt like I was back in that headspace of residency, and I was feeling these things that I had felt so viscerally that I had just like completely sublimated and honestly forgotten about. And so I felt like I wanted to like get this down. And then I feel like that like pregnancy and having a newborn is such a this I've like I was like on the fence about having two kids. I'm definitely doubting kids. I was like, this is not an experience I'm gonna have again, but it is such a profoundly human experience. I want to like remember what this felt like and how it transformed me. So and I really like I felt like it was gonna slip away. Like I wasn't sleeping very much. I wasn't remembering things very well. I was like forgetting my dreams, and I just felt like I needed to like document it before it slipped away. And then the other thing that I think the other sort of feeling of urgency was, I think especially after I had kids, I didn't tell anyone I didn't tell anyone when I started writing the book. I didn't tell anyone when it sold. I didn't tell anyone while I was writing it, including my own mom, like until it was almost out in the world. Because the other sense of urgency was I was so afraid. Like every day I was like, I think something could happen. My kids could catch the flu or, whatever, and I'll never write again. It felt so like alchemical and slippery. And so, so that was the other feeling of urgency is every day I was like, I have to do it today. Otherwise, I'll lose it.
Totally. Yes. Did you have systems help support childcare in place while these leaves were going on? And even now, I'm sort of curious, like what the system looks like.
1,000%. Yes. So the first leave, was like, I had never done it before, and we did it like completely wrong. So I think I was out for almost 6 months the first time, and we had no childcare until the 7-month mark, something like that. And then we had decided we were going to like stagger. My husband's a professor, and so he had to leave as well. And we were like, oh, we're going to like stagger it. So we like, can save money on childcare, which was stupid. It's so lonely.
Oh, it's so funny. Yeah. But it does make sense, right? This is the most efficient way.
It's the most efficient way. Exactly. We were like, okay, like look at the spreadsheets. Yeah. This is obviously the way we're going to do it. And then the childcare that we wound up setting up, which I highly recommend to everyone, is we set up a nanny share. So we met another family who lives like very close to us, who had a child who is about 6 weeks, I think 6 weeks older than our son, or 6 weeks younger than our son, and found like the loveliest, like just the most like loving and sentimental nanny in the world who loved those two boys. And so they would drop their son off they had a big dog, and they couldn't have childcare at their house. So they would drop their son off at our house. And he would hang out with our son and me. And so they had like a little friend, and that started when my son was 7 months old, and then continued and that continued. So we had that childcare for our older son, even when I had my second time. We had our leaves at the same time, and I would like nurse my son and hand him to my husband, right? And I also this people think that this sounds like crazy when I say it, but I'm a person who needs a lot of sleep, who has like made some really bad choices.
I loved in your book, you were like, I don't even do caffeine because anything that suggests it's going to interfere with my ability to sleep. With my sleep,
yes. I'm like, that was like my prime direction.
Yes.
And I was fully, even like the first couple of months, my son was like, he was like nursing every 2 hours a night, but I was sleeping in a different room. He was sleeping in the room with my husband, because like your mom brain, like you hear like every grunt and you just wake up fully.
Yes.
Like, I like it's like half of your brain is completely focused on this other
for
thing.
sure.
So
yes.
that was the other huge thing that I think helped. And then when he was 6 months old and I was going back to work, then the nanny share ended. Our beloved nanny share buddy started daycare, and the nannies shifted to start taking care of both of our kiddos. So now they're like,
is this Sabrina by any chance, or is this?
It is Sabrina.
Because I noticed in your acknowledgments, and I want this to be normalized because, first of all, all these kick-ass mothers who are writing these books, in the acknowledgments, 99% of the time they say, and also thank you to form of childcare, nanny or daycare, whatever it is. Why aren't the dads also writing this in there?
Right, I know, because I didn't even think about that 1,000%. Like this is like the infrastructure that's like making your life
Yes.
possible, making possible. And I was like so resistant to the idea of childcare. Like even after I went back to work, I was like, maybe we can like do some kind of like hot potato handoff. And I don't know
Yeah.
why. I just was like, it just felt like tender. Like it just felt like this baby's only going to be this little for so long. It is amazing how much of my like mental energy suddenly became free the minute that there was like this other third adult who loved and cared for our child who we could trust.
Yes.
I mean, like,
Totally.
like a lot of young moms, I feel like, are doing the same thing where they're trying to figure out like staggering their leaves and can we wait to start childcare? I'm like, just
Totally.
find a
Totally.
little child, find a daycare, find a place, find a friend.
Yes. Yes. I actually wanted to ask you this existential question or get into this topic with you about, because in a lot of your book are very examples of basically how a woman's experience, their pain, their suffering, their stories are not really believed. And you have this really powerful line that or to me, describing pain as no one can fully know another's pain. We can only believe it, which is profound and like, we need to fix the systems in that. But it also, in the context of motherhood, and we did talk about pain being sort of this, I don't know, rite of passage to becoming a mother, which is unfair. But it also made me think about how asking for help is something that is so hard. Every guest on our show talks about how, all I want is a village, or I would love to have help, but I have a really hard time asking for help. And some of it I was thinking about in the context of your book and how pain and our suffering isn't really believed because people we're sharing it with they can't prove it based on their metrics. And I feel like there's some connection to how women have a really hard time, mothers have a hard time asking for help because the reason that they need help is not fully believed or not fully understood. And I wonder if that's something that you have confronted or think about. Although you also just said, I struggle to ask for help, but there's some way that it doesn't feel like the help is justified. In the same way that a patient sitting on the table might say, this really hurts. But if the first response isn't, oh, but of course it hurts, and tell me how it hurts and why, like I totally get it. If the first response to I need help is like, oh, but it sort of seems like you have it all together.
Yes.
Like, why do we wouldn't ask again? I don't know. I'm just curious. Maybe you can explain it to me, but I feel like there's a connection there.
And I think it goes back to what you're saying about how like dads are not acknowledging like their childcare in their books acknowledgments, because that is like labor that no one values or see. Like it's this invisible labor that like allows everyone in the world to like become an adult, and we just don't value it at all. And like we think that, I don't know, like I think we think a lot of the ways that our society is organized are somehow like natural or like intuitive, but they're not. They're like totally constructed. And this one happens to be, I think, constructed by men or by the constructs are like don't, I think, value the labor of childcare and how hard it is and how much of yourself you like lose doing it. It's interesting. Like I feel like there's so many examples just from the medical literature of ways that, there was this wild story about that I'm sure you have heard or read about this, about a fertility center where a nurse was siphoning pain medications. And the follow-up story to that is about pain during C-section. So all of these women who are experiencing pain in delivering their babies, and that pain is, I think, like viewed again as sort of this maybe initiation ritual or this thing that you're supposed to like grit your teeth and bear because that's what comes with being a mother. And I think, I feel like I not only was not even like, I didn't want to set up childcare. I also like was resistant to like offers of help from my own family, which is bananas. Now I think about that, I'm like, why, I was like, and it somehow is like, and I think part of it had to do with this like this piece of like that I knew I was going back to work, and it's so like, as like you feel like you want to be the only person who can fill your child's needs, I think, in this way that is really painful. Like for me, one of the hardest things was even like, I think my husband has this to some extent, but it's not the same kind of like physical, like I think like he was able to to like travel for work much earlier than I ever was. And it wasn't because like I didn't have support. Like he was delighted to like be the one taking care of the kids while I traveled. But it was like, I felt like I had these two feelings of, one, like never wanting to be away from my child, and two, being like, I'm going to go insane if I don't, you know what I mean? Like those two competing interests. So it's like this hard thing of, how do you ask for help when part of you part of you is like, this is torture, and part of you is like, this is the only thing I want.
Yeah, totally. The tensions of motherhood. I totally agree. Both want it to be like over, but then also never over.
Yes, right. Yes. And you like, why, right? You want your kid to be able to like go into the next room without you, but also you're like, why are you?
Yes. Can we go back a little bit to what it was like for you to go back to work? Maybe it was slightly different each time, but kind of what the logistical elements, I'm curious what sort of support was there for you. And then I'm also really curious, in the world of medicine that I feel like maybe is evolving, but it still seems very male dominated. Is being a mom something you like hide? Like, do you want people to know that you have kids? Like, I'm sort of curious how you show up as your full self, which is so like woo woo and the thing to do now. But is that allowed, or what was your experience around that when you went back to the hospital?
It's a really interesting question. So actually with both of my kids, I feel like I had, of the colleagues I had who had young kids, the only colleagues I had who had young kids were men. And a lot of them had taken like a very short, like maybe 2-week parental leave, something like that. So it was a very different experience, I think, for me. It was a lot harder for me the second time around. Well, I think the first time around, I was trying very hard to spend as much time with my son as possible. So I would like leave for work later so I could see him after he woke up. And I called it like imprinting on him. It's like, I want to see him every morning. And then when I had my second son, it was like even harder because it felt like I was like always holding this other baby and like trying, like suddenly it was not just like I'm at work or I'm at home when I'm at home, I'm going to be fully present with my child. It was like, suddenly, like there was not, no matter what I did, there was not enough of me, you know?
Yeah.
Which is so hard. But what I've done is I think I realized that like I really loved, or I really feel grateful of had the experience of being a doctor with that before I became a mom. And I have sort of tried to replicate that in the sense that I do a lot of hospital service in exchange for having days where I can work remotely. So, or where I'm not doing clinical care and can be a little bit more in control of my hours. So I'll have like weeks where I work, 7 days and work the weekend and take overnight calls. And then I'll have other weeks where I don't go into the clinic until the afternoon, or where I'm able to be sort of much more present. And the weeks where I do about 1 week out of the month is like a really heavy hospital week. And those weeks I leave for work before my kids wake up because I find it so hard to, like, if they see me in scrubs, it's like a really hard for me to get out the door. And so my husband does childcare until our nanny arrives. And the same thing on the weekends is usually a short day for me, but I leave before the kids wake up. And then I try and come home as early as I can and try not to, there's always like work left at the end of the day, but I try and be present with my kids and then do the work after they go to bed. I'm exhausted by the end of 7 days. I'm like barely functioning, like halfway through the week. I'm like, I don't know if I'm gonna make it. This is, because it's like, it just is like so hard to be fully present. And then the other weeks I try and be like, have a very luxurious life, and I, can, if my kids, childcare starts late, or, something happens, or someone is sick, or someone has doctor's appointment, I get to be the one who's a part of it. So I think I'm not great with boundaries. I think I've tried to like replicate that feeling of like leaving it all on the floor at the hospital, but in really finite chunks of time. And it's not perfect, but that's kind of that's like the system that I figured out now since having my second child.
Yeah. A lot of people talk about if you look at it on just a day-to-day level, it all seems out of whack. But if you zoom out to a week or a month or 6 months or a year, there's some semblance of, I don't know if we'd call it balance then, but it seems more sustainable. But it's still so hard. That's crazy.
It's so hard. It's so hard. And like, it's wild to say that it's easier to leave before my kids wake up, but it is so hard to, it just is so hard because they are tiny little vulnerable humans, and they've like evolved to need you. And it's so hard to walk out the door when, they physically need you. You know? So
are there like role models or like programs, or is there like a very declarative, like, if you want to be a doctor, or even within, as a working practicing doctor, like recommendations for how to approach this? Because it just seems like everyone's kind of, and you could say this outside of medicine too, everyone's trying to basically do the same thing, but we're trying to do it for the first time without
I
like
know. I
kind of
know.
standardizing how this goes. I feel like, to me, I think why medicine feels in some ways uniquely both impossible to standardize, but also most sort of close to being able to be standardized, that it's such a machine that you're
Yeah.
working within, and full of people who are, in my estimation, very intelligent, kind of looking for creative solutions to things, really wanting to make it all happen. You'd think there'd be some innovation around, like, how can we support mothers and fathers, of course, like, so that they can be the best doctors they can be, and also so they can be functioning society people in society and great parents. Is there anything like that? Or like, what's the community, or what's the support within the context of a hospital?
So I think there just are like, I think a lot of it is not sort of coming from the hospital. A lot of it is just like communities of moms or like
Yeah.
communities of parents talking. And there are a few things like now I feel like having sort of gone back to work twice, I feel like I have some opinions about
Yeah.
what should be something that doesn't exist at my hospital, but does exist at some other hospitals, which I love. Is that there's some hospitals that have like on-site daycare, which I think
Yes.
is amazing. Like, I think that's just like it seems so simple
Mm-hmm.
and would be incredible, and just make it, because that's, I think, like, something that's like really hard about medicine is because it's just like the physical work of medicine makes it really hard. Like, I think about this sometimes, like my husband is like, oh, like if we're really in a bind, I can take the kids to class. Like, I'm
Yeah.
teaching a class, I can take them. It's not a big deal. Like,
Right.
that's not
You
true
can't
for
really do
me,
that for your, yes.
You can't do that for your kids. Yeah. So like, it just, I think on-site daycare would be huge. I think,
Mm-hmm.
I residency, I think, is really tough because I think there is this way in which you really just like have to have a certain amount of experience to like feel confident practicing independently. But there's no reason to me, like, I don't understand like why you can't just like put residency on hold for, however many months you want to take parental leave and then come
Mm-hmm.
back and do those hours over 5 years instead of over 4 years or something like that. I think that's what I recommend to all of the residents that I talk to, is
Yeah.
there's like this real stigma around like extending your training on the back end because you took parental leave. And I'm like, that's because for years, people were not like men were not taking parental leave when they
Right.
had kids, and women weren't becoming doctors. Like,
Yes.
that we need to change.
Yeah, totally. Well, and you are also a professor at BU, casually on the side. But maybe I think it's not uncommon for, in the medical world, for people to be also connected to an academic institution, maybe. Not that to diminish it, it's still significant, but
No,
seems like there's always more that you have to do beyond just saving lives. What among the students, is this quietly a concern, or do you think about role modeling, or are you giving them wisdom? Like, where is coaching coming for? I mean, really not about me, but like, we want more women in medicine so that women will be believed, if nothing else, when they
yes,
come in as patients. So I'm just curious how you approach that in your professoring.
yeah. I mean, there are studies that show that like patients do better when they're cared for by women, when
Yeah.
they women as their doctors. So we should all
Yeah.
be really invested in like finding a way to make this work. So I work a lot, like the trainees so I feel like the trainees from whom I hear this question the most are the resident physicians. So they
Mm.
finish medical school and they're in this like really intensive period where a lot of them can't imagine. A lot of them are in their late 20s or early 30s, and they really want to start a family but can't even imagine what that will look like because
Mm.
no control over your time during residency. In fact, like, I told myself when I took this parental leave, I was like, I want to show the residents that I work with that this is the way to do it and that this is
Mm-hmm.
an appropriate thing to do. And I still felt like ill about it because I
Mm-hmm.
I was like, well, all these other people are working while I'm out, and
Mm-hmm.
and even like, so I had this like I had this narrative for myself about how it's an important thing to do because I want the residents that I work with, I want them to feel like they can take as long of a maternity leave as they need and come back on the other end and like feel like they are, a better doctor because they understand a lot of things that people who are not parents haven't had the chance to experience. So it's a work in progress. I also like, I so I'm the program director of the residency program. So there are 28 neurology residents, 7 in each year. And I was asked to do this job when I was on maternity leave, and I did interviews when I was on maternity leave, like
Wow.
interviewed applicants for
Mm.
this program. And there are just a couple, like a few things that didn't feel like anyone else was going to be able to do. So I did a lot of work while I was on maternity leave, but I also had been trying. One of the reasons that I almost didn't take the job was because I was worried I wouldn't be able to be fully present for the residents that I was supervising. And I'm so glad that I am in this role now. And it's just been a really like lovely exercise in figuring out how to make it my own. So I don't, there are a lot of things that I don't attend, but I also, the residents were just at my house yesterday. Like I have an open house every 3 or 4 months where they come over and can hang out with my kids and see that it's possible to have a family and to have young kids and to still do this work. And like there are, I think, a lot of moments where I like choose to come home to my kids rather than, staying late for some teaching session or something else. But I hope that I'm bringing something else that they can see some other way of being a doctor thanks to me being in this role.
Yes, I'm sure that's true. Yes. You're also in and I'm partially still in it too, but like I think we had talked about that. Every part is hard, but there's something uniquely challenging about like the 0 to kindergarten. And then where it's truly duct taping. Like now, my child, apparently the nurse called and said he has a cough and he wants to come home. And so I need to go get him, but he's 11. And when I get him, I can bring him home and no, but don't listen to this, but he can watch TV. But it's not like I'm picking up my 2-year-old, 3-year-old. And then if I can't have that child just be here independently. So there's a real sense of crisis, I think, anytime the system doesn't quite work when you have little kids. And that's most of the time because there's so much unpredictability.
I'm like, how does anyone hold down a job with kids?
Yes, totally. Do you think we talk a little bit about this, like having it all concept. Is that something that you consider ever, or are you just you're building the life that is yours? But I'm curious if having it all is something that you aspire to in any way.
I feel like I have a lot. Like right now, I feel like I have a lot. I don't know that I have it all, but I feel like I have a lot more than I did. Shockingly, I have a lot more than I did before. I feel like I have a lot more than I did before I had kids, which I never would have predicted. It's funny. One of my cousins was asking me the other day, like, what was the thing you least expected about having kids? And I think I spent a lot of time thinking, like, making the spreadsheets and thinking about, like, what's practical in terms of, like, how much childcare can we have? And, like, how can I, like, give up as little as possible to, like, have enough childcare to take care of these kids? It didn't occur to me that I would be, like, really want to hang out with my kids.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that will enter my, my calculator, my spreadsheets. And so it just was interesting. I mean, they're, like, truly bananas. Like, they're just, like, so, like, they're just, like, jumping. We had to, like, they share a bedroom and you could, in the morning when we're like trying to get a little more sleep, you can hear them when they're about to do something they really shouldn't do, like trying to climb out the window or something. You can hear them saying the word camera because they're talking about the and they're being watched, and you're like, oh my god, I better run in there. So they're like really like they're at an age where they're really getting into shenanigans, but they're also like really joyful. And I feel like I don't know. I feel like it has like given me new joy in my work because I think I am seeing it in a new way. So I think there's a lot of like really, I think having kids has been impossible, but also really
Oh, I love that. Yeah, I mean, we sort of filter for this persona, but these high achieving, and wonderfully not because they want the trophy, but just because they want to strive and have a bigger impact. I think a lot of that are very sort of want to do things themselves, very individualistic, but not, I don't know, and generous at the same time. Those women, when they become mothers, they all talk about this like beautiful, like rounding out of life in a way that they really didn't know to anticipate, but are so grateful that has happened. So I'm glad that has been a gift to you too. We like to end with a few little short answer questions that we can send you on your way. But if you could think back to your new mom self, that very first child, kind of sleeping, maybe not at all, is there anything that you would say to her?
I mean, I would say your life is not over. It is really just, and I wouldn't have believed it. So one of those things that I would say it, I don't know if it would have been believed, but I would have said that you're still going to be able to do all of the things that make you whole.
Oh, that's important. Yes. Anything that would have you mentioned a few things in the context of the hospital and practicing medicine, et cetera, but anything that would have made it a little bit easier so far, or a theme of things?
I mean, a huge thing is just sort of, we talked about support and care. And I think people talk about it takes a village, but just, I feel like humans we're not evolved to like live in these nuclear families. And we the way our society is structured makes things so hard for us. I think
Mm-hmm.
Free childcare or free elder care so that your parents can live with you and take care of your kids,
Yes.
like anything that can make it so you don't have to ask for that
Mm.
help or you don't have to jump through hoops to set it up. I think that would be huge.
Oh, I love that. We shouldn't have to ask.
You shouldn't have to, it should
That's
be the
so
default.
true.
It should be opt
Yes,
out.
totally. The act of needing to ask is gaslight inherently because you're like, you know
Yes.
what we need.
Yes,
Why are you making me ask
every
for
human
it?
being, right? Exactly. Every human being went through a stage where they needed like constant supervision. So like,
Yeah.
why are we like
Yeah.
pretending that that's a unique just like demand?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh. Um, last one is one day your little kiddos might listen to this. Is there anything you want to say to them?
Um, yes, I want to say that they made this all possible. I never would have been able to see this world in this way. I would never have been able to write this book. I wouldn't be the kind of doctor that I am. And so I think yeah, sometimes worry that when I call them monsters, they listen
No,
to.
I think it's an act of love.
No, hopefully you act through being monsters, and also you're like the
Yes.
greatest, my like greatest and truest thing, and to
Oh,
made all of the other great and true things in my life possible.
oh, beautiful. Well, you're a phenomenal mother. I'm sure of it. You're a beautiful writer, and I'm sure an incredible doctor. If my brain ever fails me, which I'm sure it will, I hope I wind up in your care. But thank you. Everyone should go out and enjoy The Mind Electric. It's luscious. It's just beautiful. I love this cover. Whoever did it is
She did a
gifted.
beautiful job.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you so much, Priya, for joining us and sharing your life experience. We're all better for it.
Thank you
So
so
thank you.
much. Thank you so much for inviting me and for having these conversations and for making it okay to like talk about these things that we're all experiencing but are like don't realize that we're not alone in it. So thank you for
Oh,
having these conversations. It's been such a joy.
thank you. Thank you. Well, I wish you the best on the rest of your day. Survive this cold winter.
Yes, stay warm. Yeah.
We'll survive. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow, Priya, how amazing. I feel like I used the word beautiful 1,000 times, but it is an easy association with her. If you ever get to meet her, maybe you heard it over her voice, but also just the beautiful cover of this book and the content of it. It's amazing. Anyway, let me give V a call and tell her all about the beautifulness. Hello, V.
Oh, hey, how are you?
I'm great. Happens to be a Monday when
I
we're
was just gonna
recording this.
say,
So great feels like that's a win.
the standards are so low for a Monday, and so you're saying great. That's pretty awesome.
It's
Ooh,
below freezing for day whatever here.
yeah, I hate to see it.
I know, and feel it even worse. Although the victory is, I wonder over time, like what the barrier has been to outdoor recess, but when it's
Mm,
cold, the kids don't need to bring all their shit to school or
uh,
arrive at school wearing a million layers. Because they're like,
yes,
we're not going to do recess today, or we're not going to do outdoor time today. And I forget, I think it's something like 15 degrees or below. I don't
Jesus,
know.
15 is
Still
so
feels
low.
cold to me.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But yes, we are finding our way through. But I, in a very nourishing way, just spoke with Priya, who is, among many things, mother of two, neurologist, very brilliant person, and wrote a book, The
Mm,
Mind Electric. It's beautiful. Now that I know that you can sort of see me, look at this cover. Do you see this?
whoa,
It's gorgeous.
pretty.
Yeah. It also aligns with folks that are following my non-influencer attempts on Instagram. I got a new journal, has a similar vibe with
Ah,
like the
love.
flower situation.
I was gonna
Anyway.
say that it reminds me of David's work, David's art,
Oh,
Uncle
right,
David.
Uncle David. Totally.
Like that, like floral color,
Heavy
like
florals.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I
Um,
love it.
but she's magnificent and like a magical garden herself. She had so many
Mhm.
great things to talk about. She was incredibly just I miss I'm going to say this out loud, which is going to be a knock. It's not a knock. I miss being around the smart, highly accomplished people
Yeah.
who are in a setting where they have quote power or leadership roles, and they're just really nice, kind
Yeah. Yeah.
people. Um, And she's a big deal neurologist and a professor, because that's seemingly what you have to do when you're also a doctor. You also
True,
seem to
because
be.
you have so much free time. Like what?
Yes.
How? But
And
okay.
she's highly accomplished in all ways, and she's
Hmm.
just incredibly warm and empathetic. And this whole book is about, it's this woven, her experience plus her medical experiences plus like with her patients plus like the history of kind of where a lot of them come from. So it's just
Mm.
this like, you're kind of caught up in this whirlwind, like a happy, I don't know, those, this is a terrible point of reference, but you remember in American Beauty? I forget if are you too young to know American Beauty?
No, I know
The
it.
Kevin Spacey. Okay.
Yeah.
The beautiful, I can't even think of what the music is when the piano's doing like, whatever the theme song
Yeah,
is
yeah,
of that.
yeah.
And there's I think it's Kevin Spacey, womp womp, looking outside at there's like a trash bag or leaves that are just like dancing in the wind. Do you
Yes.
remember this moment?
Yes, yes, yes.
Where minus everything that's swirling around that. That's kind of what it's just a beautiful, feels like a
Aw.
very organic, full, like beautiful wind tunnely, like you're just sort of carried nicely through this sort of, one sentence goes to the next, one idea like very naturally moves in the other. It's just very thoughtful. It's like a perfect
This is like
handoff of
such a
a newborn.
beautiful,
You're
truly,
like,
what
how do
a
I hand
beautiful.
this over without like your like your head falling off? And I feel like she does that in her writing, every word, every
Wow.
sentence.
Did you say that verbatim to her? Because that sounds like a very big compliment.
I didn't, but maybe hopefully she'll listen and she'll
Hey, can you talk to me again? Listen to our
I have so
podcast,
many nice
The
things to
Mother.
say. Let me
This is
blurb your
that's
book.
so beautiful. Ah,
Yeah. So it's also, I think, obviously in the context of this, where it's sort of like motherhood alongside working and like high achievement, etc. Like
yeah.
she's such a beautiful example of maternal strength, that I was going to say power, but it's almost like more wide. We're beyond power.
Wow.
So anyway, she was like really wonderful to talk to and very easy to talk to.
I bet.
Here are the other things I wanted to pass along, or that were like, I think we should all remember.
Yes.
One, she talks about how becoming a mother made her a better doctor, even though going into it, she's like, my entire identity was being a neurologist,
Um,
and which is a 24/7 always on
yep.
heavy job. And she was like,
Yep.
I loved it. And I couldn't really imagine doing it any differently or doing less and still remaining myself. And so, yet she also knew she always wanted to have a child. Like she sort of always looked towards that as like, then my life would feel full. And so she doctored for a while before having her kids in her like essentially like mid-30s.
Okay.
And kind of went into it knowing or anticipating there'd be this sort of loss. And she did like he actually, doula tranquility by he
Yes.
who talked a lot about like how much she mourned the loss of who she
Yep.
was.
Yep.
I feel like
Before it
Priya
even
talked,
happened.
yeah,
Like,
she talked
yeah.
a lot about that in
Mm.
anticipation. And yet after the fact, which is also a theme among many of these women, is she was like, once I had my child, my first kid, she has two, she was like, suddenly it was like she saw the world in color again, or for the first time. Where it just is, it's like an awakening into a different layer of the universe somehow.
Yes.
And she said it made her a better doctor, because she was like, before then I didn't really understand people's like how they feared death really until she had kids. She was like, because like being afraid of dying is like a whole other thing. She's like, I don't even know if I was afraid of dying until I had kids in the same way.
Oh,
I know.
what?
I know.
I love this. I am careful to not I feel like I could spiral down like a million thought processes right now, but like that is like a thought and a feeling I actually had this weekend. Perhaps maybe watching something, you know,
Oh yes.
oh, her
Oh,
fault,
her
which
fault.
we will dive into later, but of like, wow, what a big like fear and I don't it like being a parent and a mother unlocks this whole new like room of emotions and feelings and dynamics that like it doesn't make what happened. Oh, do you have to go?
I'm just talking. My oldest son just came down to share an essay.
Oh,
Can I
love.
just finish? You finish chatting, and then I'll come find you. Is that okay? I love you the most. Look at that. Look like a lot of words you wrote.
What are we writing an essay on?
This is for a fancy
Fun.
school application.
Oh,
But let me
amazing.
finish this and I'll come find you. Is that okay? Give me like 8 minutes.
Obsessed. I love you so much, Liz.
What a dude.
Well, like
Yes. What were we saying?
becoming a parent and a mother unlocks this whole new like world and dimension of like feelings and emotions and responsibilities, and like
Yes.
there is this fear when you become pregnant or choose to start, you know, expanding your family of like, what am I losing? But you just really have no idea what you're also gaining, and it isn't
Right.
a loss, it's just a change, and change is hard. But
Yes.
like it is such a big, that's so beautiful that she was able to like articulate it that way though.
Yeah.
Like I didn't even know that I
Yeah.
didn't know what I didn't know, right?
Yeah.
Like that's
She's
so
such like a human where she even said, I forgot to bring this up, but I assumed, and I think it is true that many doctors were like, whenever I first thought about a job, like from that point on, I wanted to be a doctor in some way. For some reason, I think that's what happens. She reminds me a lot of my father-in-law. She wanted to be a writer and wanted to be a journalist, and that was like really what she expected to be doing. And then kind of the industry was not as lucrative or not as welcoming, or it's a hard industry to exist in. And so she's kind of found a way to like merge both storytelling and story harvesting, like from her patients
love.
into medicine. So she's like, a lot of the diagnoses that they deal with, she's like, this is really about understanding their stories. So it's a beautiful example of, maybe this is also what it is. It's another braiding, V. It's like
It really is
pulling together
making life making life work for you, not like trying to figure out how to make it work. Like for it.
And
Yeah.
even within something as structured as medicine in its own way, like you can find a way to expand the job description a little bit and like kind of like have a more creative lens on like what it could be or how it could be done or what components are relevant to other interests.
Yeah.
She also wrote this book on maternity leave, or across 2 maternity leaves.
What the fuck?
Like, you know, the book, I'm obsessed with this. So like, the woman who wrote Between Two Kingdoms, that's like beautiful. The millennial book that every millennial wishes they'd written. That's like, and it's called Between Two Kingdoms, like about birth and death, I think. I forget the kingdoms. Sorry, I have to go back. But this is like Between Two Maternity Leaves, where the first maternity leave, she said she got the book was like not option, but like picked up. She did the book proposal and got it out to, I think in her first, just as she was going back to work from her first kid, someone picked up the book. And then after the maternity leave that she had with her second kid is when she like finished writing it, from what I think. Which again, we've heard these different stories of like how many businesses, how many like books, how many ideas have come to life on maternity leave, and like the power of space and time and perspective. Even though, and we talked about this too, it's like, could we also just not feel the need to be productive beyond recovering and raising a newborn? Like,
oh my God, truly.
I know.
Logistically, how, like, on a less emotional and more of a logistic note, how does she doctor and write and parent and show up for herself?
Yeah.
Do you have advice?
High level it's exhausting and still really hard and very difficult to be present. I think in practice, what she did say was, it's very, very much true that the writing happened while she was on leave. So she wasn't doctoring.
Gotcha.
And then the other piece, though, of like raising kids while being in a hospital setting and beyond, is really, really demanding. And also she wants to try to model that there are ways to do it that are more humane than what the stories have been telling, especially young women that want to be doctors. So she took a long parental leave, like she extended her parental leave longer than she could have, because she wanted to show that like you could do that. And she has a great husband who he's a professor, so has also a demanding job, but like slightly different forms of flexibility. And so it sounded high level. It's kind of like she goes kind of all in a few days a week and then has more flexible other days of the week. And so it's like day to day, it's kind of strenuous and exhausting, but if you zoom out, it's a little more
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if tolerable is the right word, but because she did say, she's like, it's honestly easy. Most, I don't know, it's like 3 days a week or something. She leaves for work before the kids wake up because it's quote
Yeah.
easier.
Yep.
But it was still, you know, and it's like all of these women we interview, I'm like, she's saying like, oh, here's how you do it. It's like not so bad.
Yep.
And I'm like, that's bad. I mean, that's not like, that's amazing
Yeah,
that you're doing that, but
right.
that's really hard.
Hard. Yes.
And
yes.
we're all like, yeah, you know, like we've kind of figured out a system. And to her credit, she was like, honestly, what would make a huge difference is like, why don't we have on-site daycare? Like true for doctors, true for all of us, but like have on-site daycare. How great would that be? And have free childcare in general.
Yes.
Like why
Who was
is
it?
this so hard?
Lexi. Was it Lexi Reese who was talking about her first job that had the no? Who was it? Someone had childcare
daycare.
at their place of
I think
work,
it
and they were like,
was it Jenny Rossman? It wasn't
Jenny
on
Rossman,
site, but
maybe.
it was close. I know these stories
Yes.
of like, oh, they would be there. Oh, actually, no, maybe it was Lauren Baker. Lauren Baker was talking
Yes,
about
that's who it was. Yes, yes, yes. Yep.
Hill Holiday, where they had
Mm-hmm.
on-site daycare, and we were like, wow,
Mm-hmm.
really?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so you could even go and like nurse like at different times of day if you need to and go
Yes.
back to your work. Yes.
More of that.
Yeah, totally. What else? Oh, and in terms of structure, the other piece too, this is a new trend, or I don't know, we should make this a thing. But she in the interview, but I also noticed in her acknowledgments in the book, she thanks her nanny. And I was like, thank you for thanking the nanny. And then I was also like, I need to confirm this is true. But I don't recall ever seeing in a dude's book that they thank their childcare. Like they thank their wife or partner, you know what I mean? And they thank the kids. But I feel like between Marissa's book and this book and I want to say Ruthie's, like all of these women that are writing these books are like, and thank you to the woman that makes this possible.
And that's on invisible thinking labor to even think of someone else.
I know.
Right?
I know. And actually to that point, the invisible labor and like the challenges asking for help, when I asked her about like what's something that would have made it easier, and she was like, free childcare, like we shouldn't even have to ask. And I was like, you know what, it's so true. Like the gaslight, this comes in the context of a lot of the things that come through in the book are like the gendered experience of medicine, and how in this case she talks a lot about like times where a woman's experience, their pain, etc., is like baffling to the male doctor and is just not understood or appreciated or validated. So it's kind of like dismissing this pain. And very similarly, I feel like the need, we were getting existential a little bit, but about how there's some connection between that, or a parallel between that, and how mothers have a hard time asking for help.
Yes.
Because it's kind of not acknowledged. So you feel like a fool asking. Like she talks about how like pain isn't fully understood. You just it has to be believed. And I was thinking about that in connection to help, where it's like, it's hard to ask. No wonder we don't ask for help, because when we do, I feel safest asking for help among people who believe the need and believe why, and firsthand understand why.
Yeah.
And I feel like we don't ask for help because we're told, this goes back to the idea of like, we should have free childcare. We shouldn't have to ask for it.
Yeah.
The idea that we need to ask for it implies that it's not seen or understood, which is just gaslighting, because everyone knows we should have free childcare. So it's kind of like the whole premise
it's not
of
that
needing to
hard.
ask suggests that we're not believed, and suggests like gravity doesn't exist, and it's just mind-boggling and so frustrating.
Truly.
So, yes. What else? Oh, here was my other favorite little nugget was I went like deep on, though we talked about it a lot at the time. But okay, so the whole concept of residency, where like doctors work 24 hours a day, they don't sleep, it's miserable. In her book, she talks very accurately about the experience of what it's like to be like without sleep for such a long time. And it brought me horrifically back to not having enough sleep with a baby, which
the worst.
But the concept of residency, which is that whole model, apparently was born out of a male doctor, not surprisingly, who had a lot of positive impacts in his own way, but was famous for essentially not needing sleep. And he worked all the time across multiple hospitals. And it later, and they ultimately discovered that he was actually like a cocaine addict.
Oh my God.
Didn't quote need to sleep because he was on cocaine. Always. And then now we've
right?
just decided like, let's just keep going with this idea. This thing that
Oh,
worked for a guy who
oh
was
no.
medicating himself into being able to stay awake. Now let's hold everyone else the same standards and not give
Holy,
them cocaine.
holy
I was
shit.
like, what? And the world
Okay.
knows this and we're still doing this?
Well, yeah, well, he still did it, Sarah. He still did it. It's
Uh,
make it work. Find a
Meanwhile,
way.
our children can't be in public school beyond like 2 p.m.
Lord have mercy. Oh
Maybe they
my
just
God.
need more cocaine. Maybe they're just
Yeah,
tired.
exactly. What I'm
Oh,
hearing is cocaine is the solution.
yeah, I know. Seems like a magic drug.
Damn.
Ugh.
All right. Well, that happened.
Yeah. Yes. Anyway, Priya was
Jesus.
awesome.
Mhm.
And yeah, very happy
Love
to
it.
have met her. I know. I know.
Thanks, Priya.
Yeah. Good stuff, Priya. Everyone go buy The Mind Electric.
Yes.
It's a beautiful experience. It's like
I love it.
wandering through the garden of medicine.
Love it.
All right. Yeah.
There's so many good things happening right now. I don't know. Life is good. Oh, big. This is like a major thing that we'll dive into later. But
Yeah.
we're on day 4 of no breastfeeding, which is crazy. And it's like
No, good for you.
seemingly going just like so surprisingly easy. So that's
Oh,
crazy.
I love that. I'm
Yeah,
so deserved that to be easy.
definitely just like feels like it was a sign of like, yeah, it was time. Like,
Yeah.
I think my partner and I were talking the other night about like how we kind of in a how do I say this without sounding like a pushover parent? Like, I feel like we let our son dictate and like let us know when he's ready for the next step,
Yeah.
which is like what happened with daycare, what happened with sleeping situation, like whatever. And like it ultimately feels like when he is ready to do something, like he will let us know and we just have to listen to the signs and like be attuned to it. And I feel like this was another one of those things where it was like, oh, there are signs that he's like giving us, and then we listen to it and it's like, oh, okay, cool. That was the right direction. Similar to like I think we would have had a hard transition going to daycare if we started earlier, but when he was showing signs of like, oh, I think that he could do this, then it was like went well because he was ready.
Yeah.
So that's really exciting and really awesome, and I feel happy about that.
Good for you. It is. I feel like
Thanks.
all of parenting forever probably is like this. It's like this the balance between following their lead, but also like coaxing them in a certain
Yep.
like optimal
Direction.
direction, but
Yeah.
not forcing it is really hard. I feel like potty training and weaning are all like early age training for
Mhm.
maybe you don't want to be friends with those people.
Mhm. I think
Or
it's
maybe you should
interesting.
try a new activity.
Like, surprisingly, I feel like, at least for me, or how we're approaching, is like almost when they're younger, it's like more like they could dictate. And then when they get older, it's like, yeah, a little more guided advice, or like,
Yeah.
maybe don't do that. Or like, we could see how this ends, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's so interesting. Yeah, I don't know, it's exciting.
That's great.
That's cool. So
And
yeah.
how have you felt? Because I know you and everybody goes into that, especially the first time being like, I'm butchering and oversimplifying, but generally going into it,
Yeah.
I think every mother that has had the opportunity to breastfeed is like has some sentimental feelings and
Yeah.
sadness in anticipation. And then my
No, I
experience, like I said to
definitely.
you, was like when it was done, I was like, why the fuck was I doing that for so long?
Yeah. I think
But how is you how have you felt on the other side?
I feel I still hi. Wait, can you hold on one second?
Yeah,
Let
yeah,
me
yeah,
hold on
yeah.
one second. I appreciate you. They should have put it in the box. Did they put it in the tent? Like, I don't understand. They were like, let me make this really hard for it. Like, why'd you get out of the truck and walk inside? I appreciate that. How are you?
All right, how are you?
Good. You holding up all right?
Yeah. Your trips, whatever.
Just go, I went to Connecticut.
Excellent.
It was easy.
Nice.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
It's a little overnight and it was good to just get away.
Great.
All right, Riggs. Oh, well. How's working in the sub below?
It's not bad because we've been inside up the hill.
Oh, love that for you. I was wondering why it was so quiet.
Yeah.
I was like, where is everybody?
But
Cool.
it's probably over tomorrow and then
Back outside?
Yeah,
You hate that.
Yeah.
You hate to see it.
exactly.
Well, let us know if you need anything.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
Thank you. Riggs, come on. Riggy, let's go.
Bye.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing this.
Got it.
Whoa, I'm stuck on the door. There we go. Jesus, what? Okay, sorry.
Was that Santa?
No, the construction men, my friends, they God, they can't figure out how to deliver packages here. So they brought it.
My friends.
They are my friends. I'm always like, if they're not around, I'm like, it's so quiet. Where is everybody? They delivered a package inside of like the construction tent. And I'm like, what's wrong? Like, I don't know. I think that delivery people, I just don't get it. Anyways, I'm just like, why did you make this so complicated for yourself? But that's fine.
Yeah.
My thought process is that it's been, I think I preemptively like grieved. Is that the right word?
Yeah.
Like felt sad. And I think I'm like definitely feeling the hormonal crash of just like yesterday I was like, I just feel sad, but like not about anything.
Yeah.
And now I'm just waiting for my boobs to be right. I think in my head, I was like, day 4, they're going to shrink and return. And right now I'm just like, they're heavy and massive. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, when does this go away?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think all in all, good, not terribly emotional, but like definitely acknowledging the feelings.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Aw, good for you.
thank you. I
Forging through
appreciate
these
it.
phases. So
Happy to be doing it.
hard.
And
That's great.
yeah, I think
Is
like
sleeping getting any better at night as a result?
no.
No.
I think a little bit. It's still hard to say. Like he's been sleeping until like 1. And then either myself or my partner go in and give him like water or something, and then he falls back asleep. But I'm trying to get a full night of sleep. We'll see.
I'll light a candle. I'll light my cozy cabin candle for you. Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, it's good.
That's exciting. Good.
Thank you. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Oh, well, good job, all of us.
Good
So much
us.
joy. See, now I'm feeling jollier.
Aw. And now you get to go read your oldest's
yes, now I get to go
essay.
read a 5th grader's essay as to like what activities are meaningful. We had this deep conversation. I like sat him down on this couch behind me as if he's like I don't know. I'm a psychologist and he's the patient. I was like, so tell me, what does meaningful mean? What does it mean to be meaningful? He's like, what? And then he actually, to his credit, of course, like figured it out and went deep. We're talking about writing. I was like, why is it meaningful to you? Did a lot of like those layers of like the why, but why does that matter? But why does that matter?
Keep going deeper.
Yeah.
Scuba gear.
But yeah, I know. So I'm curious what he put together. What a guy.
I cannot wait. Please share if you feel comfortable off the podcast.
I will.
Or on. Put him on blast. Fuck it.
Yes. Let's do a dramatic reading.
Oh my God. Could you imagine? Yeah.
Crowdsource the edit. All right. Well, you're amazing.
Love you.
Go us. Love you too. I'll talk to you
Love
soon.
Pria. Okay,
yes,
bye.
Go Pria. Okay, bye. Thank you so much for joining us. Please remember to like and subscribe so you don't miss an episode and we can reach even more rock stars like you. The Mothers is a production of Backline Media, shining a light on those who carry the team.